Love finds its way to the girl. In Deltarune Chapter 4, this prophetic windowpane is almost played for laughs. Susie, after all, has just seen how she is described in the prophecy, a girl with hope crossed on her heart. Now she finds out that during the course of this adventure, she's fated to find love. But what Susie doesn't realize, and what I think many of you don't realize, is that she's reading the prophecy incorrectly. Susie is not the girl destined to find love, and the girl who does find it isn't someone who wants it. Hello everyone, my name is Spookydood, and I think Deltarune Chapters 3 and 4 may have spelled out exactly where this story is going. Understand that there are so many questions that the fanbase is asking after the lore bombshells that were these chapters, and I don't think a mega 100% wide-reaching theory is possible anymore. That being said, I have a feeling that Chapter 4 may have secretly revealed what is actually going on with Deltarune, why we were called here, and why Gerson may have given us a terrible weapon that will doom the Deltarune world. We also have what could be the biggest question about Gaster that, if it was figured out, could solve what he's actually up to. My name is Spookydood, make sure to like and subscribe, now let's discuss. Hey guys, before the video starts, I have kind of a pretty big announcement to make. I'm starting a brand new channel, a second channel. It's called Spooky Vision, like television and Spookydood combined. I'm going to be covering all sorts of topics on that channel, mostly horror related. Specifically, Secret of the Mimic comes out this Friday, or today I guess when this video releases, and I will be talking about it. As you're watching this video, I am playing through the game and catching up on everything, and I am preparing some videos. So go subscribe to Spooky Vision, I'll put a link down below in the description, and stay tuned for content on there as well. I'm not going to pretend to be the first person to discover this. As of right now, everyone seems to be talking about how weird the picture of the girl is in Chapter 4's second Dark World. You see, in the first Dark World, the one created by the Knight, we see the prophecy, as in the actual Deltarune prophecy. As it turns out, Ralsei's prophecy was heavily modified. It's not the original text. According to Ralsei, his version was more of a summary. Ralsei's version of the prophecy seems to be a pretty straightforward retelling of the prophecy we see throughout this Dark World. Outside of the question as to how it ends, something Ralsei does not want us to know whatsoever, it seems clear that Ralsei stuck close to the source material. Except, that's not exactly true, as we find out in the second Dark World of the chapter, the one opened by Susie. Before I explain what we see here, we need to agree on something. There is one defining feature of Susie's Dark World, and it's that everything is mixed up, in the wrong place, or out of order. The very first thing we see here, and I mean very first, is two panels from the prophecy from the first Dark World, out of order. Add on to that bookshelves lining the walls sideways, upside-down bells, a piano that shoots itself around the room rather than the nearby bookshelves, walkways that are upside down, and you've got yourself a precedent set. The things in this Dark World aren't exactly right. The reason I want us to agree on this precedent being set is because of the prophecy we see here in this chapter. Susie excitedly spots the panel describing Ralsei as the third hero, the prince, alone in deepest dark. She wonders if there'll be other prophecies describing the rest of the fun gang. Sure enough, following this we see the first hero, the cage with human soul and parts. This is clearly describing Chris, though Susie raises an eyebrow at how it describes them. The next one we see is, and last was the girl. At last was the girl. Susie, hyped that this next prophecy was going to be about her, as this clearly demonstrated, ran to the next one. The next one said, the second hero, the girl with hope crossed on her heart. There's only one more prophecy after this, and it states love finds its way to the girl. This is back to my earlier point. This moment is sort of played as a joke, as Susie realizes she's going to fall in love. But ask yourself, is everything Susie thinks exactly right? You know where I'm going with this. As are most things in this Dark World, these prophecies are out of order, all mixed up. Put in the correct order, they read, the first hero, the cage with human soul and parts. The second hero, the girl with hope crossed on her heart. The third hero, the prince alone in deepest dark. And last was the girl. At last was the girl. The prophecy has two girls in it, and Susie, despite spending the first chapter learning the power of hope, isn't the girl with hope crossed on her heart. She's clearly the fourth character reference, and last was the girl, as we see the Rude Buster symbol here. So what's the deal? Well, as Ralsei explains, this is the original prophecy, and it doesn't just give a general overview of what's to come, it boils everything down to a T. It even knew Lancer would say toothpaste and then boy, to which Susie says she's shocked that the prophecy predicts that much. Ralsei assures her that it does just that, which is why it's important to understand the prophecy we see in Susie's Dark World is the real prophecy, and everything it's saying is true. You might be confused though. Didn't we just see Susie become the girl with hope crossed on her heart? Isn't Susie the second hero? Well, no. First off, it seems quite obvious just from looking at the picture that this is actually Noelle. But regardless of that fact, this prophecy isn't deviating from Ralsei's version of the story. The truth is, Ralsei's version of the story is wrong. Ralsei's version of the story isn't the true prophecy. Susie isn't one of the three heroes, she's something else. The second hero clearly is Noelle. But hold on, how can we make such a radical leap in logic? And what does that mean for the rest of the story? So what? Well, for that we need to go back to Gerson and the Shadow Mantle quest, both of which spell out exactly what's been going on the whole time. You see, let's think about Jevil and Spamton for a second. Their entire quests largely focused on the idea that we were not free, that we were pawns in a larger game we couldn't possibly understand, that our freedom was a lie, and that in reality we're puppets on strings, marching towards a grim end. This is what Jevil basically tells us, and while Spamton was a bit more self-involved, he was terrified for this exact reason. The Shadow Crystal quests in chapters 3 and 4, the Shadow Mantle minigame as well as the Gerson fight, also allude to this. However, I feel like, combined with our newfound knowledge about the true prophecy, these two quests tell us exactly what it means to say your choices don't matter in Deltarune. It's because the game itself has been rigged from the start. I'm going to do this out of order for dramatic effect because I actually think that Chapter 3 pretty much puts to words exactly what has happened with the prophecy. So let's first talk about Gerson. During his battle with Susie, he starts to talk about Lord of the Hammer, his book series. After asking him what happens in it, Gerson gives an overview of the whole book series. Chapter 1, the heroes defeat the king and stop the dragon. Chapter 2, the City of the Shining. The heroes do battle in chariots to save the queen. Chapter 3, the Isles of Northern Light. The heroes travel among the islands and catch a glimpse of a lost land. Chapter 4, Trials of the Holy Hammer. A great smith gives the heroes a terrible weapon. Chapter 5, the Field of Pink and Gold. The vast garden is charred in an inferno of jealousy. Gerson says that there was one more chapter, and one chapter that never got written. However, the point here is that Lord of the Hammer is clearly a parallel to Deltarune itself. What's the deal with that? This is yet another story within Deltarune that seems to parallel its own story. In case you forgot, one of the big questions pre-Chapter 3 was why Dragon Blazers, the in-game video game series that the characters all play, seems very, very similar to Deltarune itself. So what gives? Well, Gerson himself explains it pretty simply. He says to Susie after their battle, "You remind me a bit of someone I used to know. Just a character from that old story." Susie responds, "Lord of the Hammer, huh? Hell if I'm reading that. Though wait a sec, isn't that what Dragon Blazers was based on?" Gerson says, "Yup, and so they changed parts of the story. Of course, the biggest fans got mad, but isn't it interesting? The book was already an interpretation of something else. Stories can be retold. They can be changed. That's what I believe." He finishes that conversation by telling Susie that out of all the characters, she is the dragon. This is worth thinking about, but just keep that in the back of your mind for now. Neither Lord of the Hammer nor Dragon Blazers have any special powers, or have the future somehow written within them. The reason they have such strong ties to the story of Deltarune is because Dragon Blazers is based on Lord of the Hammer, and Lord of the Hammer is seemingly based on the prophecy itself, or more so the religion that the Lighteners believe in, which worships and preaches the exact same prophecy that exists in the Dark World. What I'm trying to say is, all the stories within Deltarune, Dragon Blazers, Lord of the Hammer, the Deltarune story we're following itself, all of them seem based on this religious tale that is sort of woven into the world itself at its deepest level. Further proof of this is in a few of the extra panels you might miss in Chapter 4. One that says the Queen's chariot cannot be stopped and the Lord of Screens cleaved red by blade. Lord of the Hammer Chapter 2 involves heroes battling in chariots to save the Queen, which seems to be based on this line from the prophecy. And we know that Tenna was cleaved red by blade in the end of Chapter 3. All of this is to say, we've established that the prophecy, and by extension Hometown's religion, is sort of a biblical source of inspiration for stories within Deltarune, including Lord of the Hammer and Dragon Blazers. So, with that said, how does that tie into the inconsistencies within the prophecy? Well, Gerson himself explained it. We're not following the prophecy. We're following something else. A story based on the original. A story retold and changed. It's not the original prophecy, it's a neo-prophecy, so to speak, which is what I'm going to call it from this point on. Need more proof? Well, like I said, Chapter 3 spells it out for us. Ram spells it out for us specifically. After playing Tenna's game and going backstage, Ram, the extension cord character who seems to know a lot about Chris personally, talks to us about Tenna's game. According to Ram, he knew Chris wouldn't like it. The game, that is. He says, "Old Tenna's done a little something here, a little something there, and made the whole adventure some big ol' blasted line from A to B. Primo boring stuff. But if I know Chris, and boy do I know Chris, that's not what you want, is it? Freedom. That's what you want, chum. Freedom. Well, if I can go hush-hush for a minute here, Chris, that's exactly what we got backstage. The original game where you decide what to do. You see, that game you've been playing, it's not exactly the original. That's exactly it. That's what Deltarune is. A new future, an altered version of the original prophecy. A straight line from A to B with no freedom to choose for ourselves. So then, what is the true prophecy, and how exactly can we be sure that we aren't following it? Well, again, if you're in the fanbase, I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. The original prophecy, the one this neo-prophecy that we've been following, Ralsei's prophecy, is based off of, is what's happening on the Weird Route. There's a hidden cutscene in the Mantle minigame board, in which Tenna talks to himself. Phew, finally, some peace and quiet. I wonder if they even like the game. I'm trying my best to make it fun, but here and there strange things are showing through. Oh, why did I base it off this stupid old thing? So what is this original game that Tenna based it off of? Well, we travel to the Isle of Northern Light. Remember from the Lord of the Hammer? There we use the ice key to access the Ice Palace. Within there is a direct reference to the Weird Route. The forbidden path began with ice magic. We use Noelle to blast enemies with ice, before eventually solving the maze with her. I believe that this game, the original game, which is directly tied to the Weird Route that has been rewritten and reworked to turn into a family-friendly fun adventure, is a direct allusion to the Weird Route. As in, this original game that involved fighting and using up your party members was reworked and changed to become Tenna's fun, simple, linear fantasy adventure. However, underneath it all are remnants from that old game. In that same way, this is exactly what's happening in Deltarune. The original prophecy, the one that involves love finding its way to the girl, has been rewritten and pasted over with a story involving Susie. However, here and there, parts poke through. Using this logic, everything starts to fall into place. Specifically, love finds its way to the girl. This prophecy isn't saying that the girl will fall in love with someone. It shows a heart, a right-side-up human heart, inside the body of the girl. I think it's safe to say that what we did in Chapter 4's Weird Route is this. The small red dot that's growing inside Noelle is going to turn into a red soul, and we'll possibly be able to control it. Regardless of if this is meant to be a literal soul forming or more of a metaphorical thing, the fact of the matter is that we have broken down Noelle's barriers and are capable of taking full control of her body. We have found our way to the girl. So then, what's the deal with the pacifist route and the altered prophecy? Well, I think since Chapter 1 we've known something very important. Susie doesn't quite fit into the adventure the way everyone else does. Chris, Ralsei, and Noelle all do what we ask, but Susie refuses. Our lack of choices in Deltarune is especially present whenever Susie's around, as we literally cannot tell her what to do. This is because Susie is not a hero of the prophecy. She's, like I said, something else. The dragon. This is why Susie refuses to wear ribbons, and why Ralsei finds that slightly odd. This is also why one of Ralsei's goals is to make sure Susie is happy. According to Gerson, Susie is the character with the white pen of hope. She is able to rewrite the story, to carve out a new path. So then, will it work? Or will we be forced to take measures into our own hands and fulfill the original prophecy? And that's the theory. The main route of Deltarune is an altered version of the original prophecy. Someone is tampering with the story to change fate, and that's being done through Susie specifically. She has the power to make choices and to rewrite the future, and might be able to find a way to save the world. The Weird Route is the original prophecy, the one that's tried to be buried, but has peeked through here and there. the one that follows Noelle, the second hero. Now, why? Well, we're not exactly sure. It's possible that the original prophecy leads to a bad ending, though it does say that there's a way for the world to be saved. However, again, it's the glass panel that Susie punches, because whatever it is that has to be done is so bad that Susie is sure we'll never let it happen. Could that be why someone is tampering with the prophecy to make a new prophecy? To subvert that one specific thing? To make it so that whatever bad thing has to happen doesn't have to happen? Well, we really don't know. There's so little information that we'll just have to wait for the rest of the chapters to come out. Now, I'm sure you're saying that this is all very interesting and very possible, but creates way too many questions to not touch on. And you're right. See, this is the point where what I believe a pretty solid theory becomes a minefield of mysteries. I wouldn't say that I'm still theorizing past this point. The theory is as I stated before. However, the implications of this theory are the most interesting part. First off, we need to talk about you-know-who. It's not enough to say that the main route is an altered version of the original prophecy. That's so random. Obviously, if the main route is an altered version of the original prophecy, someone has to be behind it. So, who is it? Who changed the story? Who has written a new future? There's a very easy answer to this question. Surely Gaster is the one who created this neo-prophecy. Surely Gaster, who is actually a good guy as it turns out, is the one who brought us into this story to help create a new future. One that follows Susie breaking fate and saving the world without whatever terrible thing has to happen, happening. There's real emotion in the way Gaster says, "How much longer now? My Deltarune." It's like he loves this world, or this story. I'm starting to think that the title, Deltarune, might really be related to this idea of a new story, the idea that an old legend is being modified and rewritten. This lines up with what we know about Ralsei. He's been instructed to help facilitate this new prophecy. If you navigate to the icy island in Chapter 3 while Tenna is gone, Susie is upset that you can't get past the tree. The tree, by the way, that blocks the Ice Palace, aka the Isles of Northern Light. Ralsei, however, is relieved. He says it's better that we're not going there, and says he was afraid it might be dangerous. The dialogue is left a bit open-ended, though. Is Ralsei aware of the weird route of the original prophecy, of Noelle and Susie's true role in the story, or alternatively, does he truly not know? This sounds just fine. The neo-prophecy is created by Gaster, and is his whole goal. However, there is an alternative worth bringing up. Are we sure that Gaster doesn't want the weird route to happen? See, no matter which route you play, he always says, "How much longer now, my Deltarune?" I felt like if we were ruining his plans, especially after seemingly locking us into the weird route in Chapter 4, he'd say something, he'd realize, but he's equally excited. Furthermore, there's a trophy called Ring that you can get by ringing bells, but you could also get it if you obtain the Thorn Ring. This is, of course, a trophy that is written and provided by Gaster. Not only that, but there's another prophecy question. Remember how Chris was described as a cage with human soul and parts? That doesn't sound like Chris. Chris is a human, not a cage. They own a cage, sure, but they are a human. So the question now becomes, what does it mean when it says cage? Does it mean a literal cage? Or is the word cage referring to Chris, but foreshadowing their role in the original story? What I mean is, the easiest way to read this line is that not only was Noelle meant to be the second hero, but the vessel was originally the first hero. We weren't meant to possess Chris, but a literal cage, a gray non-living body, with human soul and parts. This makes the most sense, as we literally build that cage, using human parts with our human soul. We are then interrupted by some mysterious interloper, looking to change up the story and send us into Chris. Technically, this aligns with what I've been saying. The original prophecy was intercepted and we were placed in Chris. However, this would imply that Gaster wants us to do the original prophecy. He wants the vessel, Noelle, and Ralsei. Otherwise, why would he have us even make the vessel in the first place? But I mean, come on now. A cage with human soul and parts? In what world does that not perfectly describe the vessel? There's also the fact that the Mantle video game is provided to us by yet another character with extraordinary knowledge, like Shams and Spamton and Jevil. It's like we're meant to find this game, to see what it says about ice magic. Meant by Gaster. Could Gaster be using the Shadow Crystal characters to inform us of the Weird Route's existence? So, which is it? Does Gaster want us to create a new future, an alternative to the tale as old as time that tells of the real Delta Warriors doing something terrible that saves the world? Or does Gaster want the prophecy fulfilled? Was he talking to Jevil and Spamton, encouraging them to realize that they have no free will, similar to what Ram is doing to Chris? Does Gaster want us to take charge, to break free from the linear path, and find that original game that someone is trying to bury? Regardless of whether or not the Weird Route was his intended method of fulfilling it, does Gaster want us to fulfill the true prophecy? This, to me, is sort of the ultimate debate. If it's true that Gaster wants the original prophecy fulfilled, and someone else got involved and put us inside Chris, and altered the story so that Susie is the second hero rather than Noelle, that would imply there is an alternative force working against Gaster. And considering everyone in the Light World knows of the prophecy, and Carol, Asgore, and seemingly December have extraordinary knowledge of how the Dark Worlds work, suddenly everyone is a suspect. Technically speaking, you could argue that Carol or December are the Gaster antithesis, that it's Carol who says you can't choose who you are in this world, that it's Carol and Chris and Des who are working together to bring about something new. Carol is, after all, very big on preservation, and if there's any character who we know of that would want us locked into a set path forward, it's probably her. Another problem with this idea that Gaster is in favor of the original prophecy is that it means he probably wasn't the one who gave Rousey all his information. It was someone else. So now that would be a whole to-do as well. I actually think there's a chance that it could be Chris, as we see Tenna say that they were given explicit instructions by Chris that they, didn't bring up except for when they were alone. Perhaps Chris gave Rousey explicit instructions as well, brought them to life, and told them how everything works. However, this is pure fanfiction. There's no actual evidence for this whatsoever. And I'm sure I'm losing you, so just hold on 1 second. Here's the problem. I'm gonna go off script and put this in my own words. If Gaster wants the original prophecy fulfilled, there is the problem of who interrupted him in the Goner Maker sequence. There is now 2 forces at play. Gaster, who wants us to fulfill the original prophecy, and the second person, the one who interrupted Gaster, who put us inside Chris, and who has altered the prophecy. They would also need to be the people who instructed Rousey. This means that we'd have to figure out, so many more things, and the explanation of, okay, so Gaster wanted the original prophecy followed, so he called us to Deltarune, but then Carol interrupted and put us inside Chris and told Rousey all this shit, and also, now we have to go, and Gaster's upset, but he's not that upset because he has a secret way of, that's crazy. Alternatively, the simpler answer, Gaster created a new story and brought us to the Deltarune world to help fulfill it. That's simple, that's nice, but then you've got the question of why did he have us create the vessel, which I think blows a hole in that theory. There's a chance there's some third unknowable answer, where it's it's sort of a mixture of the two, but I don't know. Did Gaster create the new prophecy? Does he want us to do this new story, create a new future? Or did he want us to fulfill the original prophecy? So we're sort of stuck here. The good news is I think Gaster will be a boss no matter what. If he wants the Neo prophecy to be fulfilled, he might try to stop us physically within the Weird Route. If he wants the original prophecy to be fulfilled, for all we know, he could still be the final boss of the regular game. After all, we've already fought the Knights and the Titans. I highly doubt they're going to be the final boss anymore. There's also the question of Susie on the Weird Route. As I said before, there were clearly 4 characters in the original prophecy. The 3 heroes and the girl with the Rude Buster symbol. So she has a role in the prophecy. Gerson tells Susie that out of all the Dragon Blazers characters, she's the dragon. The only other information about the dragon we have is that in Chapter 1, the heroes stopped the dragon. More proof that Susie wasn't a hero in the original prophecy, but not much else. I do think it's worth bringing up this mural from Undertale one more time, the one that shows what is clearly an angelic Noelle surrounded by serpents underneath the 3 triangles battling a dragon. Hey, you never know, this could be the Weird Route's ending. That's sort of what we're left with. This is the end. I mean, there's nothing else to say. We don't really know what the point of the original prophecy is. There's a lot more worth talking about with that original prophecy. There are panels saying they'll hear the ring of heaven's call, and they'll see the tail of hell take crawl. What does that mean? What? You know what I mean? I don't want to... I was afraid that this video would come across like a half theory, like I've got the idea but not the conclusion, and I don't want it to be like that. The truth is I don't think we'll know, and I think that any theory that comes out about this will run the risk of, you only get so far, you know what I mean? It's clear that the prophecy has been altered and that the story of Deltarune is some kind of new prophecy and alteration of the original. I think it's safe to say the Weird Route is the original prophecy. That's the point of it. That's the point of it. Deltarune is the story of a new story, whereas the Weird Route is falling back to that original story. But where do you go from there? Who wants what to happen? We really don't know. I think it's safe to say Chris does not want the Weird Route to happen. But Gaster, I don't know. I mean, Gaster has come across as sort of a friendly figure so far. I was previously very big on evil Gaster. Originally, I said that Gaster was evil, and a lot of my arguments came down to, well, he's like the devil, so he's evil. And I know this is like a stupid argument, but I still kind of think there is merit in that argument. When you make someone so closely aligned with the devil, and now they're bringing up like serpents and hell tail stuff, like, yeah, dude, there's something there, okay? But I do think it's clear that Gaster's got a more complicated role. Who knows? Who knows? Is Gaster the angel? Is Gaster a good guy and there's a different bad guy? An evil guy that's like eviler than evil Gaster? Who knows? Who knows? Who wants the Weird Route to happen? Who wants the Pacifist Route to happen? I don't know, but that's why I'm asking you in the comments. What do you guys think? Do you think that, first of all, do you agree with the theory? Do you think that the Pacifist Route is the new future, whereas the Weird Route is following the original prophecy? Do you think that Gaster wants the new future to happen, the Pacifist Route, or the Weird Route? Do you think he wants the original prophecy to be followed? What do you think is up with Chris and Carol? Do you think that the second speaker from the intro has some different desire? Do you think the angel is us or some other being? Let me know. These last few chapters showed that Toby's not going to shy away from giving us big answers relatively quickly. Certain things I said in this video, like Carol diverting the prophecy, might sound totally crazy and like it would require just way too much explanation, but chapters 3 and 4 set a precedent for massive jaw-dropping lore dumps to be a continued event going forward, so maybe it's not as unlikely as you think. My name is Spookydood. Make sure to like, subscribe, and send your chapter 3 and 4 theories to spookydoodtheories@gmail.com for them to be reviewed in a future video, and thanks for watching.